Describe the process and aspects of manpower planning. Uh, so the process and aspect of manpower planning. Uh, See, this question is very simple. It is asking describe the process and aspect of manpower planning. So basically, if we'll talk about the process include manpower plan and objective of the organization, assessment of the manpower situation, projection of manpower requirements, classification and interpretation of information, developing work standards and performance norms, anticipating manpower problems, costing inventory, supply of personnel, research studies, manpower planning and the budget. Um, so these are the process. So basically, process includes objectives of the organization have to be stated objectively and personal requirements settled in accordance with estimates drawn. For example, objectives of a health research institute and a hospital are different. For the former, research personnel are required. For the latter, personnel qualified in the specific activity of patient care are suitable. Within the broad parameter of objectives, priorities have to be ordered and performance indicators specified in quantifiable or measurable terms. For example, punctuality, allotted work hours, etc. Efficiency should be measured by specific norms. Assessment of manpower situation, manpower inventory has to be prepared, which involves collecting all possible information regarding education, qualification, experience, abilities, aptitudes, performance, date of joining, date of birth, and date of retirement, etc. of individual employees. This help this helps assess basic skills of employees and the resource base of the organization. Organizational effectiveness over a period of time can also be assessed by statistic prepared. It also helps gain perspective for the future in terms of how efficiency levels can be enhanced, what qualifications needs to be prescribed at what level, what training to institute, etc. It in order to raise efficiency to desired optimum levels, projection of manpower requirement. There is a need to anticipate future trends in personal availability and requirements. Application of statistical methods ranging from simple extrapolation, regression, or correlation analysis to complex economic models help the management analyze past and present trends and estimate power future requirements relatively accurately. A manpower plan has two components: manpower demand plan and manpower supply plan. The supply plan deals with the resource of proposed manpower, and a personal inventory is prepared, which helps in determining the desired ratio in which direct and indirect recruitment will be combined. Personal placements from inside and outside sources are separately cataloged. A manpower plan should spell out the manpower requirement of an organization in totality. It should have temporal location and job positional dimensions in case of field offices. Besides qualitative and quantitative duty 1990, the process of manpower planning involves use of techniques such as quantitative analysis, multivariate skills analysis, operations, research, PERT and CPM, orthogonal, polygonal, etc. Outsourcing, multi-skill training of workers, and downsizing are some of the activities undertaken in smaller organizations. Departmental heads themselves have to assess manpower requirements on the basis of their own judgment and experience. Classification and interpretation information. Information collected must be classified to facilitate analysis. Data have to be read properly and inferences drawn accurately to derive correct conclusions and formulate a objective policy based upon such conclusions, developing work standards and performance norms. A serious drawback in personal administration is under utilization of capacity expression as under employment layoffs and general below par performance of employees. This happens when work norms are not standardized and laid down objectively. There is no measuring rod to judge performance by or examine causatives behind perceived inadequate or insufficient performance. To improve objectivity, work norms needs to be developed and should be framed realistically in that the limitations or constraints of bounded rationality should be provided for. Standards must be developed in the light of all available information in conformity with the requirements at the specific levels. Objectives should be laid down clearly in that they should be intelligible to the ordinary worker and should not in any way result in ambiguity or lack of role specificity. The reference is to have effective communication besides necessary flexibility should be built into them so that changing requirements could be provided for precisely standard laid down should be realistically provisional, appropriate, flexible, and clearly defined. Hence, the order in manpower planning is to set up hierarchy of objectives, stipulate qualifications for each level, set up a manpower plan, assign weights to performance indicators, work out plan, judge efficiency by performance indicators, review plan, etc. Comparison of current and future manpower needs reveals the quantitative gaps in performance of a person. The information is useful in writing job description and specification and also plugging gaps to reduce the efficiency lag by discovering requirements at different levels and making provisions for the same. Costing inventory for manpower planning information is also needed regarding materials available in the organization, buildings in use, availability of computers, supply of personnel. Entire exercise would be futile if ultimately personnel and requisite qualifications cannot be made available in time. Policy planners need to work in close cooperation with educational and training institutes to ensure adequate supply of personnel. Besides, policy should be sustained and that organization must have sufficient funds to pay for new and added services. To meet resources constraints, less expensive alternatives need to be tried. One way could be avoid employing highly trained personnel for tasks that can be accomplished by less qualified staff. The Thai Ministry of Public Health, for example, employed trained midwives in family planning programs to reduce costs and free doctors who were in short supply for more skilled tasks. The measure reduced cost and pilot studies revealed that performance of nurse midwives as was good as qualified doctors. Research studies. Research studies are important to monitor and evaluate a manpower plan. It is only on the basis of empirical studies that future changes can be advised. Policy has to be fact based and as objective as possible to maximize rationality and avoid satisficing solutions or a priori judgment in decision making. The economic dimension of policy making and implementation is increasingly in focus. Research is needed to assess the effectiveness of training programs by application of tools like post training surveys. Sophisticated analysis is needed to examine discrimination claims and complaints. Manpower planning and the budget. Manpower planning and its integration with the PPBS are vital to secure consistent effectiveness through uh, uh, right through till the feedback stage. Manpower needs and implementation costs have to be documented under appropriate activity heads or cost center management accounting system and integrated at each stage with objectives of other sections to build coherent policy monitoring and evaluation mechanisms also have to be integrated to get the big picture and ensure cost effectiveness at succeeding stages. Knowledge of the principles of budget and manpower planning is particularly critical at the formulation and monitoring stages. The need for careful budget and manpower planning is crucial for the success of any project, program, or policy. Poor formulation and monitoring of budget and manpower needs can, for example, result in the following problems: the rejection of projects, programs, or policies because of overstated budget and manpower requirements at the formulation stage, non or incomplete implementation of projects due to the understated cost and manpower needs, leading to chronic shortages of human and physical resources. A tendency for personal cost to rise with time, squeezing out other important project cost items and preventing effective implementation. In developing countries, budget and manpower planning are attended to only at the implementation stage. Plan implementation consequently loses way. There is a need to continually adjust plan priorities to changing requirements. The central problem of budget and manpower planning in developing countries is how to deal with contingencies. Careful formulation and monitoring are imminent to minimize uncertainties which are exacerbated by financial and manpower shortages at crucial time. Four important considerations in budget and manpower planning are identified. Thus, understand relationships between recurrent and capital costs, personal costs, and non-personal costs. Identify resources critical to project success, and find out the possibility of project modification in case of non-availability of these resources. Understand the relationship between inputs and include contingency measures for all project inputs. The following issues needs to be considered by manpower planners. Capital expenditure incurs future recurrent costs. Likewise, staff costs, breed non-staff cost, managing revenue expenditure. During formulation, it is important to identify which inputs are crucial for the success of project and to negotiate to secure them. Assigning values, when assigning the future availability of manpower, allow for wastage and for the time required to train replacements and additions, avoiding wastage. If crucial resources are not available, modify the project, adjusting end to means adopting a pragmatic approach. Think about phasing inputs. Bar charts can be useful tool for scheduling operations, managing time, securing lead time as a safety measure. Include contingency allowance in budget projections. Contingency measures are of two types: physical contingency, inventory, and price contingency, demand fluctuations, and effective time management is achieved through a well documented prepared plan. Planning the labor is an important part of accomplishing service work profitability. The manpower section of the tasking for software can help to streamline the work assignment process for the manager. Aspect of manpower planning. Having discussed the various steps and requirements essential for human resource planning, the question arises: what strategy should be employed to make the workforce creative, innovative, and dynamic? Mentioned here is in brief are the aspects of manpower planning: organizational planning and development, establishing organizational objectives, goal, and target, redesigning organizational structure, building interpersonal relationships, inter agencies, and thereby in the total system. Career development, staffing, recruitment and selection, replacement and transfer, promotion, training, refresher courses, briefing, sabbatical leave, terms of employment, salary, administration, incentive, fringe benefits, retirement benefits, employee welfare, medical facilities, leave, recreation, housing, leave, travel, concession, children's education, personal records, personal files, personal data for decision making, performance appraisal, morale and motivation, financial and non-financial incentives, conduct and discipline, professional standards, satisfaction and social psychological needs, management, staff relations, professional associations and union, participative management, effective joint professional association, personal research and review, PER, planning and determining programs areas, analysis and interpretations, development of more appropriate personal programs and policies, development and integrated personal approach, follow up of improvement action, and effective communication. The Department of Personnel must provide for effective communication between the staff and the management. Proposed organizational change may actually give counter results if persons are suspicious or resentful of contemplated change. It is not official queries or statements of confidential reports that earn staff loyalty. It is the extent to which the average staff member appreciates and understands the objectives and purposes of communication, especially regarding proposed changes, that solidarity is achieved. The administrator must encourage employees to participate in developing solutions. To quote Ted R. Brennan, 1988, only by an understanding of the individual, his habits, expectations, and beliefs, and can be administrator know what is needed to induce a spontaneous cooperation for the benefit of the organization. Next is motivation through decentralization, delegation, and job enlargement. There is need to use proper motivation to optimize output and thereby productivity. This would require judicious decentralization, delegation, and job enlargement and performance appraisal. Employees or unions or associations should be dealt with sternly in case of non-compliance or alleged insolence on the part of any worker. Bottom-up policies and increased involvement of lower-level staff in the affairs of the organization is the only way to instill confidence among staff workers and increased commitment on their part towards the organization. This can only be achieved through sound human resource management, macro manpower planning. Broadly, manpower planning represents a system approach to personal administration with the emphasis on integration of personal policies and programs framed at micro levels organization into macro level State national level policies such progression continues till the wider socio-economic planning of the country, wherein all such micro plans are integrated and provided for. There are macro plans for the state, country, and micro plans for smaller units, a department or a section. The major plan comprises and evolves out of micro plans. The process can be envisioned as one progressing through a series of concentric circles, with the larger circles macro level moving outwards, encompassing smaller ones planning at micro level. Logical culmination of the process is in the socio-economic plan of the country, annual or 5 year. As in the case of India, manpower planning is concerned not only with the balancing demand and supply of different categories of person, but also with the with overall development and utilization of the human resource in the country. Development administration is not a mechanical process; it is a human enterprise, and success depends on the skill, quality, and motivation of the people involved in it. Manpower planning is significant for the development administration. In the third 5 year plan, the Planning Commission observed of all the resources for development. Perhaps the most fundamental at the present time is trained manpower. The extent of manpower available and the training facilities established to constitute a major determinants of the measure of advance which can be achieved in different directions. In each field, personal requirements have to be estimated carefully and over a long period. This calls for improved statistical information and development of techniques of manpower assessments so that the necessary estimates can be made with a reasonable accuracy and a comprehensive picture built up for the economy as a whole. Manpower planning is thus an integral part of the economic plans formulated by the central and state governments and their agencies, and within their own specific fields by industrial associations and other organizations representing different activities or interests, as well as by individual undertakings and institutions set up. The Institute of Applied Manpower Research aims at providing a broad perspective of requirements of trained manpower for economic development in different fields in India. It arranges for facilities for training and building up the existing workforce, to evolve methods of identifying and developing talented persons, and generally to secure the most effective utilization of the country's human resource. Next is discuss major objectives of performance appraisal. So if we will talk about the objectives of talent performance appraisal, so we have few objectives. uh, huh. See, performance appraisal serves the threefold purposes of monitoring, evaluation, and control. Monitoring, evaluation, and control. It is an imperative exercise to achieve the many objectives of personal administration. Performance appraisal is more than more mere work assessment. It is a management development activity and is understood as a process which facilitates development of an organizational climate of mutuality, openness, and collaboration towards achievement of individual as well as organizational goals. To quote Hegel 1973, performance appraisal is the process of evaluating the performance and qualification of the employee in terms of the requirement of the job for which he is employed for purposes of administration, including placement, selection of promotion, providing financial rewards, and other actions which require differential treatment among the members of a group as distinguished from actions affecting all members equally. The primary purpose of performance appraisal is to help each man handle his current job better. Roland 1970, it is the principal medium through which human talent is in organizations is most effectively utilized. Performance appraisal multifarious objectives need to be clearly classified under the following heads. Like we have work related control, efficiency, assignment, job evaluation. The objective क्या होते हैं? We have work related administrative, career development and communication. एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव में आपका कंट्रोल है, एफिशिएंसी है, असाइनमेंट है, जॉब इवैल्यूएशन है, उन सब में सेम आता है. लाइक कम्युनिकेशन में भी कंट्रोल, एफिशिएंसी, असाइनमेंट, जॉब इवैल्यूएशन. करियर डेवलपमेंट में भी कंट्रोल, एफिशिएंसी, असाइनमेंट एंड job evaluation. So work related objectives में provision of control over work, improvement of work efficiencies, assignment of work scientifically as per specializations, and express proclivity of personnel and planning further organizational expansion and diversification as per internal manpower planning, and job evaluation of compensation administration. Career development objectives में identifying strong and weak points of personnel and aiding remedial measures for perceived weakness through need-based training, encouraging, motivating, controlling organizational behavior, identifying training and motive development needs, and rewarding, correcting, or punishing employees determining career potential of an employee with respect to his area of specialization and aptitude and chart future course accordingly. Planning performance and development activities for total improved organizational performance and communication objectives provide timely feedback of performance, facilitate informal communication, clearly establish goals in the term of what is expected of a staff member, possible job enrichment for the future, mutual setting of goals, better interactions through hierarchy tiers, provide a counseling and job satisfaction through open and free discussions regarding performance and aiding self-assessment of employees in terms of where they stand in the organization by comparing expected and actual performance. Administrative objectives serve as a basis for promotions, rewards, and penalties serve as a basis of for incentives. Administration performance is not a unidirectional but a two-way interactional process whereby organizational equilibrium is secured by the management balancing inducements and contributions on the part of employees. Offering an economic analogy, Barnard has stated that equilibrium is attained at a level where negative contributions through effort put in organizational work and positive balance inducements received with respect to an individual employee equalizes. Organization has to strategize effectively to doctor such balance. To that end, organization has to reinforce positive behavior on the part of employees by a way of rewards, welfare measures, and employee benefit schemes to secure sustained and willing cooperation towards organizational purpose and restore internal equilibrium in case of any divergence. Serve as a basis for transfer and placement policy with regard to suitability of each employee as discovered through the performance appraisal, and serve as a basis for termination in case of imminent staff reduction due to cost considerations. Key elements of performance appraisal could be summarized as follows: linking individual group goals with organization goals, a regular review of job description to keep jobs in tune with changing regulation requirement, organizational development (OD), performance development plan, continuous monitoring and review, establishing causal link between performance and reward, approaches of performance appraisal. See, so that was all for the objectives. If you talk about the objectives of performance appraisal, next is job evaluation. Job evaluation. Job evaluation includes What let's see. I'm not getting job evolution. Let's see. Next is redeployment. Analyze its guiding principle as well as key issues. Uh, See, an employee declared surplus may be redeployed to a position within the department or another department where there is a similar match of skills between the employee and the skill requirement of the position. An overriding principle that is applied to redeployment is that the earlier contribution in the organization is of value, and working towards retaining such experiences would provide opportunity for capability and capacity building. Taking example from public service reform in New Zealand, in the present era of challenges and need for efficient functioning, redeployment options certainly march towards improving change management process and helping the organization to retain people who are familiar with the organizational networks, culture, and behavioral and ethical standards, retain institutional knowledge and specialized competencies, promote the organization as an employer of choice, reinforce work ethos and commitment to the spirit of service, provide both a symbolic and a tangible gesture that the organization offers employees unique opportunities such as multiple career pathway and opportunities for development. Regarding guiding principles and of enhanced redeployment process, the above quoted documents have referred to the following as additional principles for redeployment. The employee is to be consulted on any proposed appointment. Chief executives and where applicable, the union undertake to encourage surplus employees to seek voluntary redeployment within the wider public service when placement is not available in the employee department. Individual employees' entitlement to privacy must be respected throughout the process, and information about them can only be released with their agreement. Any redeployment process must fit easily within the overall restructuring program and be easy to understand and administer within a reasonable time. Some of the major reasons for redeployment include internal reorganization and restructuring, adhering to the employee's request for redeployment to another post. The post occupied by the incumbent becomes redundant, incapacity of an employee for performing assigned duties, an employee being declared as incapable to perform the assigned role, etc. Redeployment key issues. In learning organization, the focus is also on redeployment for the purpose of retaining and developing experienced staff having required skills. Redeployment facilities the process of organizational development and modernization, besides adjusting to service changes by safeguarding the skills, experience, and motivation of personnel. In any given redeployment situation, the following have been identified as the key issues. Redeployment guideline 2005. Pre redeployment situation. Total cooperation of all parties and stakeholders. Local redeployment policy in place. Appointment in temporary basis if required until regular and substantive posts are available. Appointment of redeployment coordinator. It is the responsibility of the redeployment coordinator to check the post or elements of the post are close in nature to that previously held by the employees in the organization. Agreed and required training has been imparted, and any other factors considered relevant by the superior employee or trade union representative. During redeployment opportunities sought in partnership with trade union displaced staff given preferential consideration for post redeployment coordinator co-opted into the area partnership forum opportunities for training or retraining accessed managers required to provide written reasons for not appointing displaced staff. Redeployment coordinators will liaise between employees monitoring arrangement, post redeployment relocation costs where appropriate paid by redeploying organization, protection costs where appropriate paid by redeploying organization, individual redeployment assessment, focus groups